to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives by this point of pale light.
We shall prevail.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to the Internet Space Program.
What's up, everybody? GM, everyone. GM Pablo, how you doing?
GM. Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in for another MoonDAO Town Hall this week. We've got an awesome and packed agenda this week. We're continuing with our astronaut conversations between Frank White and a few people who have flown to space. I think this is the third week in a row now that we're doing it. The last two have been really cool with Ron Rossano and Andy. And today we have Chris Sembroski from the Inspiration4 Mission. So super excited to hear from Chris. Chris has been on MoonDAO Live before, but this will be a pretty unique one because he'll be talking to Frank White directly. It'll be a cool interview and conversation between the two of them. So really excited to see what they dive into, especially with, overview effects and Artemis 2 and Earthrise and all the stuff that's happening in the world right now. Folks are really tuned into what's going on with the overview effect. So
right. Yeah. People in the Discord have already maybe seen this, but Frank was named in a CNN article that came out yesterday about the overview effect and Artemis 2. So yeah, it's cool to see it kind of in the public consciousness.
Overview effect is going mainstream.
Yeah. Even over the weekend, I was like seeing some of the just like content that was coming up from Artemis 2 and people describing their experience aboard and talking about how viewing the Earth from space and is causing them to rethink how they view the Earth as one system, one fragile Earth, one spaceship Earth. They're using all the words that Frank is.
Well, even the Artemis 2 crew is basically talking about the overview effect all weekend long, even if they haven't used the words exactly, but they're talking about that they're talking about the overview effect for sure. Right. So it's really, really cool. So I think, it's definitely reaching, millions more people who hadn't really thought about or considered this, having the Artemis 2 mission happen right now. So
yeah. Cool. Well, I guess some updates before we get into the conversation. So two major things to kind of cover. One is progress on the raise, of course, but the other is we're accepting proposals for projects. So let's start out with the raise and kind of get into some of the numbers where we're at. So like you can see here on the screen, we're at $162,882 raised. That does tend to kind of fluctuate a little bit depending on the price of ETH, but we're about 32% towards the first milestone, and we're just under 100 unique contributions, so pretty solid. 18 days left. We should continue to rally and push to hit our milestone, and we've got 18 days, so we need to make every single one of these days count. So if you know people that would resonate with this, that resonate with Frank's mission to popularize the overview effect, and also have a chance to go to space with Frank, spread the word, share the link, reach out to people. If all of the people that contributed reach out to 5 or 10 other people, we can multiply pretty quickly. So yeah, it'll take kind of a guerrilla warfare effort. We need everyone in the Discord, everyone to reach out to others and help get Frank to space. And selfishly also, if you're competing, it helps to raise more funds so that you can also go to space. So let me share the.
We're over 25 now, so we've hit our kind of threshold to advance to the second round. So
yeah. So we've got 28 people that are currently in the running. So yeah, after you contribute, you can put your overview tokens on any of the citizens that you'd like to back. So yeah, make sure if you've already contributed to go to the leaderboard here and back someone. And yeah, the other major thing, well, okay, I guess there's two. One is if you've done any kind of useful work for the community over the past quarter, make sure you submit your contribution so you can be rewarded for contributing to the community. If you click submit a contribution, it'll open up a Google form and you can just quickly write down what you did. But also we are, we're accepting project proposals. So the max budget for a project is a little over 4,600 USD. You can copy in the template and submit. It's kind of, the deadline is today. We are going to extend it to midnight today, Pacific time. So you've got a few more hours to submit. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Click this, it'll open up a Google Doc template, fill it out, and then you can import it right here by pasting the link, and it'll populate it in, and then you can submit. If you have any issues with the submission process, reach out to us on Discord. Just make sure that you have your team members and multi-sig listed. And if you do have any problems with that, just reach out and we can help you out. So yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I guess the community contribution, that deadline, we're looking at, you should get it in as soon as possible for anything you did in Q1, but we'll have that open until April 15th. So be sure to get those in so the Senate can evaluate them. And as Pablo said, end of day today, essentially, for any Q2 project proposals. But yeah, we'll be kicking off project updates. We're going to have a conversation, as I mentioned, with Chris and Frank here to start the hour. And then in the second hour, we'll be getting into project updates from the Q1 projects. And we have a couple final reports, but most of the projects are carrying on their work throughout Q2. So we'll have Q1 final reports and Q1 project updates. So stick around for that. It'll help give you a good idea of what people are working on and what MoonDAO voters have supported in the past, if you're considering, how to shape your Q2 project proposal as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Great. So I guess we should get into it. Should have Frank and Chris jump up here.
We can turn things over to Frank and Chris. Hello, Frank. Hello, Chris. How you guys doing?
Hello, guys. Well, thank you for having us on today, Frank. It's good to see you again, and Ryan and Pablo. It's always great to be here with the MoonDAO community. So, Frank, it's always a pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
We'll turn it over to you guys. We'll step it up.
We'll jump off here. Yeah.
All right.
You guys do your thing. Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, I'm doing well. I thought today we would talk a little bit about Artemis, and then we had a fun time last week where I interviewed Andy Sadwani about his flight, and he interviewed me about this project that we're doing. So, how did you experience the launch, and to what extent have you been keeping up with Artemis? Just what's it been like for you?
Oh gosh, Artemis has been on my mind since the first one attempted to launch. You know, I was in Florida for the very first two Artemis 1 attempts, and wasn't able to actually stay for when it actually launched, but it's been on my mind ever since.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they announced the crew shortly after that. And, you know, Victor Glover flew Resilience before I did. Dr. Proctor filled his seat on our mission aboard the exact same spacecraft. And so I was able to connect with him before finding out he was, you know, assigned to this crew, and then just over text, you know, wish him the best of luck on this incredible mission. And then finding out that Christina Cook is on this flight, and then realizing she and I were in band class together in high school.
You're kidding me. What?
I know. Of course, we're different sections. I'm playing the oboe. She's, I think, playing the French horn, if I've got it remembered correctly.
Oh gosh,
it's been a minute. But yeah, so she and I were high school. We graduated same high school, same year. And so when Artemis 2 is getting ready for launch, you can imagine how exciting it is to see a unicorn fly to space. And yes, our high school mascot was the unicorn.
The unicorn.
So
a mythical creature.
Yeah. Oh, you know, just proud to see more unicorns flying into space, right? So, I imagine there's now some fun fan art you can make about that. But the alumni community rallied around this event for the high school. You know, one of the longtime art teachers there, you know, designed a shirt. So I was wearing my school science and math T-shirt underneath, you know, my pullover to work that day as I was getting ready to go to the Museum of Flight here in Seattle. And so like just pull out the Superman moments of like, yeah, supporting Artemis 2. I was able to enjoy watching the flight with, you know, a few hundred of my closest space nerds in Seattle at the Museum of Flight, which was just pretty amazing. And to be in that community, it may not have looked like a whole lot on the NASA feed because there was a good 10 to 15 second delay. So, you know, anytime they cut back to the Museum of Flight in Seattle, everybody was just boring to look at. But I mean, we were cheering, your hands were waving. Frank, where were you? You were in Florida for the flight?
Yeah. First, I want to know, what school was this?
Oh, the North Carolina School of Science and Math. It's right next to Duke University in Durham, North Carolina.
Yeah. What's in the water there? Something that produces astronauts, I guess.
Well, it's a magnet school for the state where kids who wanted to get more out of their science and math curriculum in high school have a chance to apply. And you know, I was excited to be accepted in and had a great time there. And it kind of spurred on my love for space and astrophysics and looking up. It's where I ended up deciding that I wanted to go and continue to pursue things that fly. Not exactly sure what that was going to turn into. But you know, I just remember seeing Christina in the background of my mind, different phases, even on a school that is geared towards the highly capable kids that want to do these types of things. You could still see that there are some students that, you know, they're going to do whatever they want to do. We have no doubt that they're going to do some great things. And I remember her being one of those. And no particular reason why. And I couldn't put my finger on exactly what that is, but you just get a feeling about some people.
Yeah.
So, and then continuing to follow the flight has been some. Oh, anyway, Frank, I wanted to hear where you saw it from.
Yeah, well, I was at the Space Bar in Titusville. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Not that one, no.
It's kind of a famous venue. It's a hotel. It's pretty much devoted to launches, and the roof of the hotel is the Space Bar, and you look across this causeway, and there in the distance is the launch. You can't quite see it. You know, if you have binoculars or a really good phone, you can see it, but that's not the point. It's really the launch. And I was there with Kristen Fisher, who did her launch party those who don't know Kristen, she's a remarkable person. Both of her parents were doctors. Both of her parents were astronauts. And she was the space correspondent for Fox and then for CNN. And she
Amazing.
now has her own thing. So I got in touch with her. I just thought, hey, I thought she was at CNN still. And I said, you know, I could really talk about Apollo 8 and Artemis 2 because I was around for Apollo 8. I'm hoping Artemis 2 will have the same uplifting spirit, you know, that Apollo 8 did. And I think it definitely did, and maybe more. Apollo 8 did the famous Earthrise picture that we've all valued for years. And Artemis did some really incredible pictures. But the other thing I would say, Chris, that goes along with you, I interviewed Reed Wiseman in 2019 at Johnson Space Center. And my interview is in the 4th edition of the Overview Effect with him. And also there's a short, like 3-minute clip on YouTube of that interview. And then I also had the opportunity to interview Christina while she was on the ISS.
Right.
And those interviews are really fun because the astronauts are bobbing up and down, as you know, and they don't hand the microphone. They just kind of direct it to go to somebody else. And I'm sure I felt the same thing you did, which is these are people I kind of know, not as well as you perhaps, but it really brings it back to the fact that astronauts are people with families. Probably at some point in time, they decided this is what they wanted to do. But they are human. And I felt like one of the great things for this flight was that the humanity of the 4 astronauts came out.
Absolutely. Incredibly so.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I got to charge my computer here.
Yeah.
Being human. But you know, they were very well spoken and very articulate, but not canned. I mean, the people I've talked to said they really spoke from the heart.
Right. Yeah, and you could feel that. I mean, I think we all felt that. Several moments. I think one of my favorite moments is, you know, when Jeremy was, you know, speaking on behalf of the crew to name, you know, the Carol point on the moon, and yeah, you could feel the emotion. I mean, it's you could feel the connection between each other, between the crew. If you can't relate to that, then you might be. I won't say you have the emotions of a rock, because, you know, Project Hail Mary has come out, and we have realized that we all can fall in love with the emotions of what a rock is portraying on screen. So, you know, I think seeing those moments, and just hearing Victor talk about how we look to him from where he was on the other side of the moon.
Yeah.
That's some very, very, very connecting, very powerful moments.
I have to ask for your forbearance. I've got to plug in my computer. Hold on.
Yeah, no worries. No, and that's one of the challenging struggles. And so that, again, technology issues, one of the very first things that, oh gosh, there's so many things that I think we can all connect to. Technology issues where they're having struggles with email opening up correctly when they first got to space, and the Bluetooth wasn't, you know, pairing with a device, and I felt very honored to be included in part of this toilet trouble in space club along with these moon astronauts. So I mean, that's it's something that we still have to figure out. So thank you for playing into that with having to plug your computer in.
Yeah. Well, if I had the right stuff, it would have been plugged in. But yeah, let's talk about your flight because you had toilet issues. And I know there's been a lot of talk and, kind of joking about it. And I had a cartoon sent to me where one of the astronauts is looking out at the Earth and it's the overview effect. And they're saying, oh man, it really gives you perspective, doesn't it? I mean, it just puts you where you are in the universe. And the other astronaut saying, yeah, but toilet's broken. But I think that's humanity. We have lofty philosophical ideas, but we're also organic beings. We have physical requirements. And whether we're on Earth or off the planet, those things all have to work. So, yeah, regarding your flight, I just want to make clear to everyone, your flight was Inspiration4.
Correct.
It was the first flight that Jared Isaacman put together. And of course, he is now the NASA administrator. So Inspiration4 and Artemis 2 are connected.
Yeah, I never thought that, flying on a rocket like this would put me, in touch with the NASA administrator. I don't think he ever thought that's a path that he would take either.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely incredible. Of course, when he flew on Polaris Dawn, here's Asteroid, their zero-G indicator for that mission. And having gone through the training for that, it was a whole different type of experience preparing for a spacewalk for Polaris Dawn. And he got a chance to go to JSC, do additional, scuba training, go through a lot more experiences with that crew after having his taste of spaceflight with Inspiration4, that it felt like, okay, what's the next big thing? After Inspiration4, he wasn't going to go back to space unless he could do it in a way that would move the needle forward and have a tremendous impact and meaning. And well, he's taken on another completely different and even more impactful mission again with what he's set out at NASA.
And once again, I think in a way he is setting the tone, because I saw 2 interviews with him before the launch. One of the interviews was with Kristen Fisher the night before at the space bar. And she asked him, what's it like to be the administrator instead of being the one who's going to fly? He said, this is a lot harder. He was very honest that he felt the responsibility because he had overall control over that flight and the well-being of the 4 people. And I mean, actually, he had that responsibility with you as well, but still, it was much bigger. And so kudos to him for being honest about it. Again, if he didn't feel it, I would be really surprised, honestly. But
yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things that, most of us, when I was watching the liftoff, I don't know that I took a breath for 10 minutes until the engines cut off. And I know Jared's gonna start breathing again after splashdown under is it 3 chutes, I think it is, under fully open chutes is when he'll be able to take a breath. So it is stressful. I mean, you put yourself in a completely different position of responsibility, and it's more so than for just the crew. I mean, this is an amazing and they're very talented crew, very well accomplished. And it's not just them, though. It's their families and their loved ones that are supporting them and around them, that, he's taken on that responsibility as well.
Tell us a little bit about your flight. As you know, I did everything I could to be there with you. I did compete for one of the seats. Cyan Proctor won, and I think she was the best person to win. But tell us about it and how you got to go. Because it was not totally straightforward.
Oh, sure. So, I mean, Inspiration4, our mission was set out to be the first all-civilian mission to go on an orbital flight and spend 3 days in space. And the intent was to fly higher than an International Space Station at an altitude of close to 600 kilometers, which at the time would have put us higher than anyone had flown for a couple of decades since the Hubble servicing missions. And so it had to be a special crew that was assembled in a unique way. And Jared wanted to have no say in who was brought to the crew, but he knew that each one of us had to be able to share some sort of powerful message. And in line with that, it was also documented by a Time magazine and Netflix documentary crew the entire time, which made it a little bit more strange initially when the first people you meet are sound technicians asking if they can put a microphone on you, and then they introduce themselves. But it was, my path to getting onto the mission was through entering a sweepstakes as a result of watching the Super Bowl and seeing a commercial. And so Cyan entered her name and competed in a Twitter contest, and Haley Arsenault competed. Well, she really didn't compete. She just worked at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital as a PA, the same hospital that saved her life as a kid when she had childhood cancer. And, I was brought into the mission in somewhat of a random way, but when I look back, it ended up not being as random as I think I thought it was. But, I lost the sweepstakes when I entered my name to support St. Jude. But my friend Kyle, who was the best man at my wedding, he and I had launched high-powered model rockets in college together. I had convinced him to join me during spring break to go up to Washington, D.C. to talk to our representatives about how do we open up space to all Americans as much as possible. And we got legislation passed through that. So I got him to lobby Congress with me, go down to see several shuttle launches as we were going to school at Embry-Riddle in Florida at the time. And they pulled his name out of the hat. And unbeknownst to me, he gave my name to Jared, saying, "Hey, you should take my friend Chris," since he wasn't able to accept the prize due to some physical restrictions with the flight. And so I get some strange calls on a weekend saying, "Chris, my name's Kid. I need your social security number and some identifying information, and do it fast." Eventually I got on a Zoom call the next day. This is the height of COVID, so we're all masked up and only meeting each other over Zoom calls, including my wife, who was visiting with her friends at the exact same time in the nice office in our house at the time that had a professional looking background. So I was relegated to do my space interview downstairs in the kids' toy room with butterflies hanging from the ceiling and nice brightly painted green walls and toys around my feet, sitting in my daughter's desk chair, what felt like sort of like a sitting on a fence post, and finding out that this guy named Kid is Scott Petit. He's a former Thunderbird pilot, retired Air Force colonel. And here's Jared Isaacman, who owns Shift 4 Payments. And next thing you know, here's my friend Kyle on the Zoom call, and I find out, that deep pool of candidates that they were doing a verification process on was very shallow of a pool. It's just one candidate, just me, and Chris, I'm going to pick you up in 3 days, and in 6 months, you're going to go to space.
Whoa.
And it started from there. and such the journey began. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had to tell your wife and family who thought you had lost that you were going to go, and they had to adjust to that, right?
Oh yeah, and I think we still go through some of those adjustments after all these years still. It's I mean, it's that internal excitement and joy of, holy cow, I get to go fly to space, and holy cow, I have to face my family and tell them that. So a bit of a freeze moment for me. So much so I think they thought the Wi-Fi had dropped for a moment. But yeah, we went through the discussion process of what that would mean. If I said yes, what that would mean for the family. If I had said no, what that would mean as well. And really, there wasn't any question. I had to say yes. And so we went through 6 months of training, climbing Mount Rainier, and sleeping on top of that volcano for a couple of nights. We flew in fighter jets. We went through centrifuge training, hypoxia training at Duke University, as it was one of the very few, altitude chambers open during COVID, and lots of training at SpaceX and Hawthorne. They trained us really well, and Sarah Gillis was our primary lead trainer, and Anna Menon was our family liaison. Anil Menon was one of our lead medical doctors for the flight, and just so many great people to help us out along the way. And we went through it. We successfully came together as a crew, as I don't think you could have intentionally formed a crew that way. We all brought unique strengths to the mission, from where we were, and we came from all over the U.S., and we bonded really well and had fun flying to space. And we took a Dragon up for 3 days in a way that had not been done or designed to do. Dragon was designed to be a taxi to the space station. So they took off the docking adapter for the space station, since we weren't headed there, put on that big dome, which we called the cupola, and that's where I was able to spend as much time as I could get, poking my head into to take as many pictures of the Earth as I possibly could, and brought several of those back with me, which now some sit as the backdrop for my desktop on my computer, and several are on my wall throughout my home. It's just incredibly fantastic journey. And of course, yes, too, the toilet did break after day one, but hey.
Yeah. You, was it fixed at all, or it just broken?
Well, for us, it turned out to be just broken. There wasn't a way that we would be able to successfully, seal things up and get into the floor, seal things up within the 2 days that we had left. The positive side of having a broken toilet was not the alarm going off saying you got smoke detected in the capsule. That's how we found out it was broken. The positive was that they found the exact same issue on another Dragon in space attached to the space station, and they had time to figure out how to fix it or how to mitigate the issue. Sure. So through our problem, we found a solution that made the rest of spaceflight safer for SpaceX.
Yeah. Which is how spaceflight works. I mean, you always learn. And Yuri Gagarin said something about that way back in the 60s. We each test. We're all testing all the time. Yeah. And one thing I do want to emphasize for those who aren't aware of this is that what you all did is it's very different from a suborbital flight. I think probably viewers of MoonDAO may know the difference, but
right.
A suborbital flight is pretty brief. It's pretty quick. There is training. Blue Origin does not have a toilet on it.
Yeah. Neither does Virgin. Yeah. No. Yep.
They both made clear from the beginning, you're not going to need it, but that's because it's quick. But Jared put you all through some very, very stringent training, and you were ready for a lot of things. I will say, just going back to what you said about telling the family, many people know this. Donna, my late wife, and I had an agreement, a prenup. Oh, yeah. And I said, I have one prenup. She said, what is it? I said, well, if I get a chance to go to space, you won't stop me. She laughed. I mean, it was so far in the future at the time. She just said, sure, absolutely. And then when I entered into the contest for Inspiration4, I realized only, 100 or 200 people had actually competed for that seat.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't thousands, let's put it that way. And then I found out there were no professional NASA astronauts on board, which I had more or less assumed there would be.
Oh,
And I thought, okay, I better tell Donna. And so I went to tell her, and she said, prenup, no worries. And I competed for some other flights, and she always just said, prenup, I don't need to hear about it.
yeah.
But that's a tribute to her. But one thing I do want to comment on before we shift gears a bit is that you all did have a very unique view of the Earth because they took the docking adapter out, turned it into essentially a cupola. Also, you were very far from the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the view a little bit.
Yeah. So, that any other flights that would fly at the altitude we did were done with the space shuttle, and they were done at a lower inclination, meaning they didn't go as far north, as far south as the typical inclination that you experience when you go to the International Space Station. Well, for simplicity and ease of recreating emergency scenarios, we launched on that 51.6 degree inclination to be in line with the space station's orbit, just because they already knew and could plan for the emergency splashdown locations and all those contingencies, which meant that when we were flying to the most northern parts of our orbit, or the most southern, at that altitude, you can see farther around the globe. We see great pictures coming down from the International Space Station, whether it's with the new 4K cameras that are up there, or through the ISS above, and you see that curve, and you can see some beautiful pictures taken from their cupola. Especially with astronauts like Don Pettit, who specialized in photography. On our flight, that curve becomes greater, and you see more of it. And in fact, we were able to get into that cupola and just turn our heads around, and without any break and no interruptions, we could see the entire uninterrupted sphere of the Earth hanging above us. And maybe that seems strange to say it's above us, but you remember there's no up or down in space. So to us, Earth was always up, the way we were oriented. And I remember talking to as we were realizing this view that we were going to be given. Of course, John Krause gave us some tips on how to take pictures, but they also brought in Don to give us a quick, 1.5, about 90-minute crash course on space photography. And as he thought about it, asking us some questions about what we were hoping to capture. And we may only get one shot during our flight to take a picture over a certain spot on the ground, just because the way orbital tracking across the planet goes. But he was saying, you're in 3 days, astronauts take crappy pictures from the International Space Station for the first several days. So you're not going to become experts to take those high resolution zoomed in pictures that they take. Give us something different. Give us something that speaks to you. Think on a bigger scale. Think, instead of just cities or rivers or mountains, think continents. Get more of that curvature. And so I took that to heart. And so when I was framing up pictures and saw different things from space, like seeing Australia, I could see at one point 80% of that continent in a single frame of my phone or the SLR camera, digital SLR, and it's like I'm going to capture that picture just to get as much in there as I possibly can, and bring that message home. And that was my goal. I'd always heard things that your memories start to fade, and the stories start to fade, but pictures will outlast whatever you remember. So those, I can always bring those back.
Yeah, and I've seen your pictures. They're terrific, and I do think that it was great that the way it was set up. It kind of reminded me of imagery I've seen when astronauts are on a spacewalk.
Yeah,
sense of really seeing more of the Earth in one image. So as you know, I've competed more than once to go. I keep losing. So now
you just have to win once, right? That's all you have.
Yeah, I'll have to win once. So now I'm competing against no one but myself, right? Just put it all out there, leave it all on the field, as they say. And actually, it's been very, very interesting to do that. You know, we set up a 45-day fundraise.
Right.
We have 18 to go. So it is still a bit of a competition. The competition is to communicate to the world why this is worthwhile. And I'll say two things, and then you can interview me. The one thing I would say is, yes, it's a human story, like yours, like Christina's, like Reed, like Victor, etc., you know, of always wanting to do this. The other side of it is it's a story of the overview effect, which is, I think we're beginning to see with Artemis, this is a new way of looking at life on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And what we owe to one another, and that we are connected, we are in a spaceship. So at another level, this flight will reinforce the work I've done for 40 years of interviewing people like you, Chris, and other astronauts to get that concept out there. So what would you like to know about my flight, which has not yet happened, but we hope it will?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to get you some altitude one way or another to get that point of view. And you know, I know you've been asked a lot of questions about what the overview effect is about, and I know you've talked about having experienced this, you know, realization on an airplane flight from a high altitude, and just imagined yourself or other astronauts, what would it be like for them to see the Earth in a different way? I got a couple different questions I wanted to ask that maybe haven't been asked before. Maybe not, but first of all, you know, when you think about the overview effect and the impact that it can have on people that experience it, and what do you think? Does it tend to create some more clarity for them, or possibly something more along the lines of like existential disorientation?
Yeah. It does depend on the person. One of the things, one of the simplifications I use is to say every astronaut has the overview, but the effect is different because it's processed through their own history, their own situation, their own expectations. So it really does depend on the person. And also, as I suspect you found, there's the overview effect when you look out the window, and I know you all kind of made a ritual out of that. Some astronauts cry when they see the Earth for the first time that way. And then there's the process of what happens over time, how it integrates itself into your life back on Earth. And that also can be really quite different. So the one thing I have found, and I was told by Edgar Mitchell very early in my research that he thought being open to it, whatever the experience, being open to it was the critical variable.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. As I talk to people, and ironically, my work may be making it somewhat more difficult. You know, now,
right? I imagine it's like, so. Does it? You know, do they? We all now have like this shared common language, and I see that, you know, talking to Ron Rosano and met Jamila at Space for America recently, and I've heard Nicole Stott talk about this in a very similar way that I speak about it. Do you feel like it creates a long-term, you know, effect in their daily lives, or Or do we just now tell better stories because of having this shared language?
Yeah. It's hard to answer that in the sense that for 25 years after Yuri Gagarin flew, nobody had a common language.
Mm-hmm.
And people were experiencing it without being able to talk about it. And so naming it, giving it some empirical reality, I think has helped a lot. It's helped to convey what's really important is not just the individual experience, but transmitting back to people on Earth, hey, guess what? We're on a spaceship. You know, we're not on a stable platform with the heavens revolving above us. It's
right.
It's really important that as people like you come back and other astronauts come back, that this message get transmitted to people who may never fly.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in some ways taking the psychological experience to society and having it hit society is the most important part of it. So I think having a common language helps a lot in that.
Yeah, I think it does too. I think there's a lot of value in being able to share that experience. I think a lot of us were sharing that, a different type of psychological experience when Artemis 2 is getting set to launch. And I know for me, it was when they did the round the horn, last call out, the comm check with the crew, and they all said a quick little phrase that it's like, all right, my eyes are sweating a bit now. And I think you're not really sure why that's happening, except realizing that we are collectively experiencing this moment together, and feeling like we are with them and wishing them well and all this as a community. And then, to dig a little deeper though, too, I'm wondering, have you ever had two things? Have you ever had moments where you've doubted your work as being something meaningful, or wondering why you were pursuing this? And then the second part too, like, well, what if Earth became uninhabitable, or would the overview effect still feel meaningful, or how would that feel?
Yeah, well, so as you pointed out, I had an experience on an airplane that was powerful. And the word overview, I would have an overview of the Earth if I lived off-world, which is really where I was focused. I was not focused on astronauts, but on people living in an O'Neill community or living on the moon. I would have an overview. I would experience the overview effect. So I was really thinking more about future space people. And then I started interviewing astronauts to confirm a hypothesis. And I realized it was not an ordinary thing for astronauts. It was extraordinary and powerful and meaningful. And I thought, naively, when the first edition of the book came out, that it was going to create a revolution. Suddenly, everybody would understand this truth about ourselves as a species. And it didn't happen. I mean, it was not a bestseller. And the revolution was very late, Chris.
Yeah.
No. I honestly spent 20 years in doubt.
Okay.
Yeah. So it really was 1987 that the first edition was published. 2007 was the first conference on the overview effect. And people came up to me and said, your book changed my life.
Loretta being one of those, I imagine.
Yeah. Loretta came to me even sooner than that, earlier. She made a road trip to Boston to tell me that. Yeah. So Yeah, so I did doubt it for a long time. I didn't really doubt the work. I just doubted whether it would ever really penetrate consciousness, you know? And then you had another question. I can't recall what it
Oh,
was.
like what if the Earth became uninhabitable, would it still feel meaningful?
It kind of depends on what we mean by uninhabitable. I do think that
Or maybe we restructure it and like, do you experience or expect that people could have the same experience um, over Mars, perhaps? Or and
yeah,
I mean, we're seeing a pretty good example of this flyby with Artemis 2.
yeah,
How does it translate to things outside of the Earth that currently don't hold life?
right, right. Well, Nick Nielsen is a space philosopher of some note. He said nobody will ever experience the overview effect like astronauts from the Earth. Because when you go to the moon or Mars, we do have an overview in a way. We've got a lot of pictures, we've got a lot of imagery of the moon and Mars. So it can't quite be the same. However, one answer to your question, I think, is this. Part of what seems to be powerful, and you can confirm or deny this, but part of what seems really powerful about the overview effect is the beauty of the Earth. I mean, we live on the Earth, we know it's beautiful, but still seeing it at a distance, there's something about it that the beauty of the planet really does hit home, but especially seeing it against the backdrop of outer space, which is dark, foreboding for some. And there's a realization that this is all we've got, really.
Yeah.
So
Well, you see those, like the farther space probes go out, we on our mission, Dr. Proctor was, realizing she looks back at Earth and sees the Earth light flooding into our capsule, right?
Earthlight, yeah.
And that it's that sunlight that has been filtered through this beautiful planet's atmosphere and reflects off the ground and off the trees. And then we go to the moon, and the most beautiful picture that we have attributed as being one of the most impactful images for the last 70 plus years has been the Earthrise from Apollo 8. We're drawn to that, and even still, we go out to the to Jupiter, to Saturn, and we see that pale blue dot that we're all curious about, right? We're not saying, "Hey, there's
Right.
Jupiter that's over there. Let's take a look at that." No, we're saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm unexpectedly drawn to this little tiny couple of pixels."
Yeah. That was one of the beautiful things Christina said on Artemis. I can't reproduce it, but she said, we will drive rovers, we will explore, we will do this, we will do that, but we will always belong to the Earth, or we'll always belong to one another. We'll always come back to Earth. And that's important. And Artemis reinforced this. And I think every astronaut I've talked to, none of the astronauts have said, yeah, it's so cool out there, we don't really need the Earth. It's been more a heightened belief in how important and valuable and fragile our planet is. And it's a miracle. And one thing that hasn't been said very often about Earthrise, and you could say it about Earthset, which is the new image, you see three things, really. The barren moon, the life-filled Earth, and the dark cosmos behind it.
Right.
So it's the Earth in contrast to another planetary body, and then the Earth in contrast to the universe. And you just see how unique it is that we're here. It's just a miracle. It's just a miracle that we're here. It's a miracle that you and I are sitting here talking to each other. It could have gone, evolution could have taken the Earth in so many other directions, obviously.
Right. Well, I took a trip with my daughter to New Mexico and was studying planetary geology without leaving Earth. And realizing the incredible, coincidences and that had to occur to give us just the right conditions to support life as we know it, between the creation of the moon and sunlight filtering into the oceans to create the first photosynthesis, to create oxygen to allow us to breathe and allow to create oxygen for the atmosphere and beyond. And I'm not the expert and can't tell the full story, but the way things have moved along, you're absolutely right. And then I guess just maybe one final question towards you. We are seeing expansion of access to space, through a number of launch providers or through through high altitude balloons. And more and more people are going to be given this opportunity to see the Earth from this perspective. Who controls the narrative of the overview effect?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would say one of the things I said some years ago is that I've had the privilege of essentially giving birth to an idea, right?
Mm.
The overview effect. And I know exactly when it happened, or pretty close to when it happened. And I have a lot of information about how it's evolved. It's now close to 40 years old, kind of middle-aged, But at a certain point, it was kind of like a teenager. It was just off doing its own thing. And I had little or no control over it, And at this point, I will do my best to control the narrative, or at least steer it in the right direction. But it really belongs to the world at this point. And Donna used to get very irritated when people would talk about the overview effect and they didn't mention me.
Yeah.
And I would say, no, see, that's good. It's now common parlance. It's not tied to an individual. So it now will evolve on its own. And
well, I would love
continue.
for you to be part of that conversation, and perhaps in a new way again too. All right. And that's why we're wanting to continue to talk about these subjects, because we want to give the person who gave birth to it, as you just said, the opportunity to experience it and see if that changes your narrative, as I imagine it possibly could. I'm wondering what surprises you'll see. I know there were surprises for me. I think that's what we're all hoping to see. I think this has been a lot of fun. Frank, do you have any other comments you wanted to say before we turn it back over to Pablo and to Ryan?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Chris. I always attempt to share with people that the astronauts are the heroes of the story at this point. I'm the chronicler. And, it's still risky. Let's be honest. It's still risky.
Yeah, I'm hoping they splash down safely. I think, like we all know, we've got to get. It's one thing to launch them, but the mission's not done till you come home. Just like climbing a mountain, the climb's not complete until you get off the mountain.
So I'd just like to say to everybody, final comment. Whether a commercial astronaut or a NASA astronaut or Roscosmos or from whatever country people go, they deserve your respect. And I'm doing my best to earn your respect and to have the experience myself, and to add to the body of knowledge that we have about this phenomenon that we call the overview effect. So thanks, everybody. And thanks, Chris, for coming today. We could go on for another hour if we didn't have other things to do. But maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Frank, it's good to speak with you too. Thank you so much.
Love to your family.
Same.
Thank you, guys. Awesome conversation.
All right.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Chris. We'll see you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, awesome conversation between Frank and Chris. Always great to, just hear the conversation about the overview effect. A lot of respect to the Chris's mission and Inspiration4. I just remember fondly watching, all that play out in real time during COVID lockdowns and all that. It was definitely an inspiring moment, and renewed a lot of people's interest in space and commercial space travel for sure. So, oh, I can't hear you, Pablo. If you're muted.
Sorry. I was just saying that it was one of the few glimmers of hope during that that period. So
yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, I guess we'll be shifting gears here now in the second hour, and we'll jump into some Q1 project updates as well as final reports. We have some that are in pre-recorded video format and a couple people that are joining us live. So we'll probably prioritize here the folks that are tuning in or joining us live here to give their reports, and we might jump back and forth. We'll see how it goes in terms of final reports versus updates. But yeah, that sounds good to everybody. We can jump into that. I'll invite Michael up on stage. Hey, Michael, how you doing? Are you able to? I know you're in the car.
Hey guys, yeah, unfortunately, sorry about that. I'm in a lift.
No worries.
How's my audio and video coming through?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great,
fine.
cool.
So.
Okay.
Cool.
So I can update you on the tabletop simulation that we're developing. We're calling it Moonrise, a lunar development tabletop simulation. And for those of you who might be unfamiliar, the project is to develop a simulation that can be used in person for invited participants in like a workshop setting that simulates likely scenarios in a future lunar environment. And we're primarily testing like governance issues, like what are the circumstances that cause people like cooperation to break down and bad things to happen versus when are people kind of cooperating. And how am I doing? Am I still here? Okay.
You cut out for a sec, but you're good now. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we in my last update, I told you that we have a rule book, a draft of basically the mechanics. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback since then. I sent it around to a bunch of experts, and the response has been incredibly positive. So it should be turning out to be like a really useful, powerful tool, and it really kind of demonstrates sort of like what are, and especially in environments that are very high interest, like the lunar South Pole, Aristarchus Plateau, and other sites, where resources might be very concentrated in just a few locations. One of the things that's really coming out as people are reviewing it is we're beginning to see when people are likely to cooperate, when there'll be like the real estate that they're fighting over is just going to be too intense. So let me jump to, if I can screen share here, I'll show you one of the things that we're working on quite a bit, which is, let's see, here we go. So, okay, I think you're looking at this map of the moon right now. This is sort of looking at how we're going about building the basic game board. Each of these squares is NASA's own kind of designation. They're 25-kilometer squares. We're going to break these down into 5-kilometer parcels within this grid. We're primarily going to be focusing on this area that goes from the South Pole, which is right where Shackleton Crater is down here, and having like a rectangular shape going directly northward toward Malapert. And I think that's going to be the most efficient area in terms of capturing all of the really high interest areas for science, for commerce, including the Artemis candidate landing sites and the Chinese ILRS candidate landing sites. So yeah, and that's so that's a big part of the work has actually been designing this map. Eventually, this is going to be printed out into a large canvas with a clear plastic grid layered over it. That'll be about the size of like kind of a large, folding, like 6-foot folding table. And people will be in a room placing assets, sending missions to different parcels, and those will all have different effects. Part of the work, in addition to building this map, has been working on improvements to the rule book, and that's especially come about because a lot of the people reviewing it have had like really good ideas for other things that get me thinking, and I come up with new ideas. And so I'm doing a lot of work with Claude to sort of both on this map and on the rule book mechanics to sort of test out the effects that different scenarios would have if we add some new mechanic, how that's going to shape out. One of the really interesting things that we're learning just by building this rule book is that people going into this with unequal starting positions, where you've got some nations, US and China, with way more resources for space than most other nations, or some private sector companies like SpaceX or Blue Origin that are coming in with way more capital than other space companies. It seems like from the mechanics of the simulation that those sort of imbalances, those inequities will have like a major long-term impact where you'll have like some runaway winners that will do very, very well. And that's really interesting to sort of test. Of course, we want to get the main purpose of the simulation is to model what's likely to happen in reality as best we can. A secondary purpose is making sure that the game is like enjoyable, and we want to make it so that if you're playing one of these small companies or small nations, that it's just not just a horrible experience for you. And we're doing that. We're trying to kind of address that in some ways. But happy to take other input ideas. If anybody else like on this call wants to reach out, please reach out to me, and love to kind of chat about this. And we're especially looking for opportunities to test run this with a few people in the room that we can sort of iterate off of. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, exciting updates. Really cool that you can use, tools like Cloud Code and all that. Makes a lot of this, much faster to iterate on.
Yeah, it's amazing because I can do like kind of 5 times what I could do by myself, but then at the same time, I just spend like 5 times longer working on the project, making it better. So.
Right. Yeah, awesome.
I'm excited to see it in a web app version at some point.
Yeah, me too. That'll be the next step.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it is very interesting, that sort of like dilemma between like if someone starts with one of these like smaller space companies, they're at a massive disadvantage, but that is kind of the reality of how this might actually play out. It might be a winner take all scenario, which is kind of what the LDC is trying to maybe avoid. So
yeah, and it will already help us kind of know like what we can do to try to make bad scenarios like less likely to happen.
Right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for the update.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks, Michael. Awesome. Yeah, we can move on to our next project update. I don't know if we have Daniel here. Hey, Daniel, how's it going?
Hey, guys. Yeah, it's going good. Thanks very much. Hope everybody else is doing good too. As you mentioned, there's been a bit of a bright spark over the last couple of weeks, given all the rest going on in the world. It's certainly been something to enjoy. Update on the project. So the top line news is we finally got some bureaucratic issues in Germany solved. So we're an entity now. We have a tax number and all that. There's a couple of extra hurdles to clear our non-profit status, but we are a thing now, which has been good. I would say 6 months plus behind schedule, but it's only actually pushed the project schedule back by 3 months. So because it's a year-long thing, it's not the end of the world. It's just often very frustrating, as you've heard me state before. The official survey is now, like I mentioned in the last update, beginning of the last month, that there was the domain I shared at the time was not our proper website yet. The survey is now officially online in the final version. All the data is being stored in a way that we can transfer it to a different system if in fact we go that direction at some point, which is something still under consideration. So in a future conversation with this community in the next couple of weeks, I think we want to talk about the budget that we had allocated towards this project and how we use it, whether or not it's best to use it in the way that we had planned, or whether or not because we've built some of this stuff internally for ourselves now, whether or not we'd be best kind of continuing forward like this for this foreseeable future, and maybe looking at doing that next year. So I think there's some bigger conversations that we have to have. The short version is that we may not actually need the money, at least not all of it. So it might be a case of putting some back in the pot, which I think everybody would be quite happy with. So yeah, there's that, but that's a subject of a different conversation at some point. And there's also some ideas bouncing around about how we might use the money to use the project funding or some portion of it in some small way to incentivize participation in outreach and things like this. So I'd like to raise that with the group at an opportune time, and I'll be going into more detail on that in the project thread on Discord. We've had a few dozen responses, which have been great. We've also had 4 video responses, which have been awesome. I'd love to see more video responses. The dream going into this was to have 1,000 responses by the end of the year, and at least sort of 50, 60 video responses, something that we could actually use as a resource to create comms material to grow the survey, grow the initiative year on year. And as I mentioned, we're 3 months delayed, so we'll be launching our comms campaign, our proper comms campaign around getting the survey out there through partner organizations at the end of the month. It was originally going to be end of January. It's now the end of April. So, yep, that's where we're at.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, good to see it moving forward. Yeah, I've seen you post the link a couple times in Discord, but if anyone here is watching, obviously do hop in and fill out the survey and help fill in some data there for future iterations.
Yeah, I'll post the link again, but yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, it'd be good. Yeah, we'll start circulating that again as well here soon. So cool. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, next we can move along to Kara with I guess 2 things. Kara, if you're available. Hey, Kara, how's it going?
Hi.
Got you for the Laika AI bot update, quarterly update, and I guess we could probably transition into your final report or vice versa. But
perfect. Okay, maybe I'll go from most previous to present.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we had our Accelerate Growth project, and I've got a summary here from my final report. And there was 3 key activities that came from it. So I'm going to review today the highlights of the LinkedIn Live event that we have, then going into the Grow Edge program, and then finally into our analytics dashboard. So, and then I'll catch up with the last month's activities of our Laika bot as well. So starting with the LinkedIn Live event, which I know you guys have heard about, so I'll just make this brief.
Kara, do you want to share your screen on the final report? That'd be great too.
Oh, do you want me to just, sure, I can do that.
Or if you want to share any supplemental materials, yeah, just while you go through.
Oh yeah, let me share the link itself to the event that you guys didn't, in case people didn't see that. Can I drop that in the chat, in the comments?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I guess I can't here. It's just in YouTube, but I'm not connected.
Well,
I'm reading notes, so
okay.
I have to look at my notes to be able to speak to it. but I can share my notes on the screen if you guys want to have something visually to look at. Actually,
it's fine. Yeah, we
I
can.
I should probably not need my notes. I think I got it. Okay, so I'm gonna pull up the event here and share that with you guys. So present, share screen. Okay. Okay, Duke. So this was the event here. Highlights, we had really great speakers. We had over 500 registrants and close to 100 live. And, sounds like we had a great list that I saw it briefly, but the good thing about this event, one of them in terms of having, post-event activity with it was being able to get the registration list. So that was passed over to Ryan and Pablo, and it sounds like there was good contacts in there and a lot of outreach also directly to them and some to me also for that. And thanks to the Moonfluencers for being a part of that and testing that model with us. I think it was really, really great. I learned later, so learning from that was two things I think that could be improved for next time was I thought that people could only send 1,000 invites total per person in LinkedIn, but the learning actually is that's per week. So just noting for anybody that is doing any marketing or for future events, we're able to actually do more invites. But yeah, that was also quite a lot for everybody to do themselves anyway. And then other learning too was with the StreamYard that it could have been streamed to more different channels from different people. So that would just add another layer of extended reach and visibility. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And yeah, I think that was the summary there. Then we also had our Grow Edge program. So this is basically a program that my organization runs, and it's connecting people in Web3 to each other for different forms of learning as well as networking. So we have 5 MoonDAO people that are currently in that, and that's continuing on, and people can attend sessions that they would like to have. And Ryan gave the opening for season 2, which was really good, and people were learning and very interested. And now we've got that replay here within our learning network. So this is like a closed network of companies and influencers in the industry. And yeah, so I think that went really well. I think that there's going to be continued partnership opportunities that will come through this. Learning from this one and just in general is that for the project, there doesn't feel like there's a huge synergy yet within Web3 and MoonDAO, and that's still kind of a bit more of an opportunity to come, that the majority of people in MoonDAO are mostly in the space industry already or very strongly, space enthusiasts. And so I would like to see more people from Web3 coming into MoonDAO, but I know that's just a kind of a step-by-step process. And then lastly, we have our analytics dashboard. So this was custom built, and basically the 2 channels that are here now are LinkedIn and email. And these metrics can be updated by uploading the content here. And we'll also be adding the metrics for Laika. So that's going to tie into this project with how we can see the analytics from the AI agent. This part was a little bit the most challenging for us, which was just in understanding like how do we pass over tech that we've built to MoonDAO and continue to keep these metrics updated. So that's still a conversation that we can have, and also would like to see more channels added here too. So if we wanted to keep working on this project, we can, and just, maybe have some bounties for it every time we open up another channel or something. I think the first step is figuring out how to best pass this over and get this into your repo. So that then leads me into our Laika updates. And basically this is here. We have made over the last month, we've been in testing with Laika and sent it to about 12 people have been testing it. And this month, things got more improved and more stable in general. Matching has improved, slowed down the matches. Onboarding and profile editing became easier. They can restart. There were some just little technical issues on things. Message handling is more reliable. Privacy was improved. And it's currently running, connected, and is serving the API in Discord. What we're finishing up is more testing and then finalizing the analytics. So there'll be daily analytics that will be delivered, and we'll try to tie that into the analytics dashboard, and we'll be tracking onboarding completion, match acceptance, and re-engagement after the first match. So again, the goal with this agent, this bot, is basically in its first versions to match people based on their interests, what conferences they're going to, and some projects. And I think this will be, the first version and can continue to be updated by WonderDev. And we'll just pass over. Once this is all ready, we have the minimal amount of cost possible for MoonDAO to continue to run it. We even have $30 in credits in a Kosh network, a decentralized network we can pass over. So it shouldn't be more than maybe $10 a month to continue to run it until it scales into being huge. And then, that's when the costs for anything go higher. But I think we'll be good for a good while. So yeah, that's pretty much my updates, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Kara. Yeah. So I guess currently the Laika bot is running in one of the Discord servers that you and WonderDev have put together. Is there an expected timeline on when we can add this into the MoonDAO Discord?
Yeah, we're gonna try to get the analytics finished next week. So then we'll do a little bit of marketing with you guys. Right, I think we should announce it. I think what a good goal would be is analytics ready next week. We also want to have it passed on to someone with an email, maybe Ryan or whoever, Pablo, or a teammate, in case they get stuck and they're wanting to ask questions to it. We want to point them into someone that can get in contact or receive what the request is. So it's hey, I'd like to do this. Why can't you do that yet? Then you guys can get some feedback on that. So that will be working out next week. And so I would say in 2 weeks, if we roll it out to the large group, we'll test that, do a little marketing announcement, and then be available for maintenance, yeah.
Awesome.
If that works. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kara.
guys.
Thanks, Kara.
Cool. Yeah, got to play with the little beta version of that. It's pretty cool. Hope it turns into a useful tool for the community. But yeah, we have video project updates for the rest of folks. So I don't know, Pablo, if you want to hop into the EB final report before we
let's do videos first, and then we'll
want to do videos. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me cue them up here. Let's see. First of all, we have a video update from Julio for the Habitat Marte Analog Astronaut Scholarships.
Hello, friends. I'm coming here to share the status of the MoonDAO mission that will be starting next April 13th. This mission is supported by MoonDAO. MoonDAO is providing 3 scholarships. Also, this mission is happening based in this great support by MoonDAO, and thanks so much. And I'd like to share my screen about some updates about this great and unique mission. Okay, this will be our mission 233, and also it's possible to see here the patch of the mission. We have participants from Peru, Mexico, and Brazil. And something very contemporary is this mission is happening integrated when it's happening the Artemis 2 mission. This is very unique. and also it's possible see how this motivates us as a team, as a crew. And I hope this will be an opportunity to bring some learnings and some expertise about this great moment. Also, it's possible to see our aerospace complex, how we are organized, and also see in details about how lunar habitat is shared in this aerospace complex. This is a photo of lunar habitat and how more details. Details about how the lunar habitat is inside, and also outdoor extravehicular activity, and also this an example of one of the activities that we'll be doing. Also, we'll be cultivating microgreens during the mission, and also many different protocols and activities, around 200 protocols that will look to operate during this mission. And last April 16th, we had a meeting, a planning meeting with participants. In this case, JL from Peru, Oscar from Mexico, Julia from Brazil, myself, Julio from Brazil too. And we have more 2 participants in mission control, Natalia and Gabriel. Okay, yes, this is like a short update about our mission, and also keep informed, following us in our social media. Also be tagging MoonDAO in our posts about the results of the mission. Yes, thanks so much, and we keep update our next steps.
Cool. Yeah, I've been in correspondence with Julia as well. I know, well, there were 3 scholarship recipients, so 2 of them are going to be part of this mission that he was just talking about here next week, essentially, April 13th. And then I believe the 3rd recipient wasn't able to attend so soon, so they have another mission scheduled at Habitat Marte in May. But we've executed the first 2 scholarship payments to Julia as part of the project team, so that has gone out. Cool. For our next update, I guess I'll go to Lakshmi by video. She wasn't able to attend live today because they're actually kicking off the first day of the Lunar Governance Workshop in Bolivia. So she is on the ground in Bolivia right now. Let me queue up her update here.
Hi everyone, buenos dias from Santa Cruz de la Sierra in Bolivia. So today is day 1 of our Lunar University lab at Universidad Noor. So we're very excited. It's a 3-day lab, and what's been really interesting is the timing of it. We planned this lab months ago, and it so happens that Artemis 2 is galvanizing the attention of all of the young people here, and they will be returning back to Earth tomorrow when the students are in the midst of thinking about lunar governance. So I think the timing feels so poetic. We've had overwhelming interest. We had budgeted and planned for about 20 to 25 students, and now I was told just last night that we have 32 signed up. These, just to remind folks, are students from indigenous backgrounds studying different fields at Universidad Noor, and they've expanded it to include other universities in the area as well. So we're really excited to welcome all of them. The other good news is a representative from the Bolivian Space Agency will also be joining us at the inauguration of the lab, to inspire the students. So I think everything is flowing well, beyond expectations. So we'll wrap up the lab on Saturday. So it's 2.5 days. And hopefully at the end of that, we're going to have some really interesting ideas and creative ideas about lunar governance. So that's the update from us. I think I'll have a lot of photographs and videos to share. And if folks have any questions, you can message me on Discord. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, really lucky timing in terms of Lakshmi coordinating this event on the ground in Bolivia months ago and having Yuri's night and Artemis and all this kind of stuff happening right in the same time frame. Really cool to see. All right, we have 2 more video updates. Here's an update from Yasmin with the Voyaj Astronaut event and college track in San Francisco coming up.
Hello MoonDAO community, this is Yasmin. Just a brief project update. We are Voyaj and we are collaborating with College Track and MoonDAO to bring together first generation students and astronaut Chris Sembroski together for an event here in San Francisco, bridging different communities, local communities in Oakland and the Bay Area. And so we have been planning the event. It looks like we're going to host it in September, mostly because the students are off during the summer, and we have a venue confirmed and the space and college track, and I have been meeting to explore some of the different breakout rooms that we will create after the talk, and a space for people to really meet different communities and for the MoonDAO community to interact with the students and create some cross-cultural opportunities and inspiration during the evening. And so I'm also working with a couple people to film the events and create content and marketing materials that we can use after the event to continue the inspiration and learning process. And we're also talking to other venues to be able to get food and all of that. So we're overall on track towards a September launch, and we're going to be spending the next couple of months just refining the talk and the breakout discussions, and we'll keep you posted as things progress. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Yeah, pretty cool. Heard from Chris earlier, obviously, in conversation with Frank, and it's cool to see we've got him involved in a MoonDAO project too with Yasmin. All right, I need to queue up the video here from Trent. I wasn't able to upload it earlier because of size limitations. Let's see.
Hello there,
Here we go.
DAO citizens. This is Moonshot, aka Trent. Just calling in to give you some updates on the Maldives space balloon project. It's been quite a wild ride. Sorry, I haven't been able to be on some of these calls en route to the Maldives. We've had to stop in Southeast Asia to source, or let me also just say resource, a bunch of materials, which has been making my head actually just completely spin. I hope everybody's doing well on their projects, and I will watch the video updates later. So just know that right now I'm with you in spirit, and it's almost 1 a.m. Here where I'm at, and so I just wasn't able to make that meeting today. But as far as updates for the balloon missions go, lots of unexpected hurdles, right? Sometimes when you start a project like this, there are known unknowns, and then there are unknown unknowns. And I will definitely say, we've had to pivot on a lot of things, but that's all right. We're still moving forward. So one of the first things that we ran into after sourcing all of our materials, the whole package, actually, it was a big tote that we ended up getting to ship everything to the Maldives. But as you're aware, the Maldives is in the Indian Ocean, so basically the other side of the world from the US. And when we went to FedEx or DHL to try and see if we could ship this package, well, it was 150 pounds worth of gear, and they wanted over $4,000 US to get it sent across the world. And so we had to think quick on our feet, and I mean me, in that circumstance, and decided to leave behind actually a handful of equipment that I felt could be sourced abroad. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but over in Southeast Asia, or I guess Asia in general, they have something similar to Amazon. It's called Lazada. And so when I was in the States, I was looking at Lazada and I was like, okay, we need this. Doesn't look like we'll be able to source this over there. Right? This is really important. Can we get it in the States? It's only made in the States. And then anything that I found on Lazada that then could be sourced in Asia, decided to just get it out here. Just cheaper. Don't have to ship those things, right? And ended up cutting the 150 pounds down to 100 pounds, and then cut it down to something like 80 pounds at the end of that. And so, again, we had to leave most of like our plastic film behind. That was a substantial weight. And as you can imagine, there's just loads of plastic film, or different types of plastic films here in Asia. So it's just finding the correct ones, for example, and making sure that we'll actually be able to move forward with using it. And so far, so good. Something else that you have to consider when you're going to different parts of the world, for those of you that travel, you know that you have to have different types of plug converters for your electronics. And sometimes you also have to be able to step down, let's say 220 volts down to 110 volts for all of your electronics. And so similar with our heat seaming device. Heat seaming device was built in America. This heat seaming device is how we actually build the balloons. So built in America, runs on 110 volts, and so we needed to be able to transform, 220 volts from the Maldives down to 110 volts, but then also get a big enough transformer converter to allow for, 3,000 amps to be pulled through it. So you can't just use a tiny little plug into the wall. You have to get a little something like this big honker right here. And so, it's just other funny things like that you think about, and then you just end up having to source sooner or later. And then when people tell you they don't have it, you just gotta keep pushing through and do what you have to do to, make things work in your favor. So, just a little bit tired out here, running around. It's also kind of funny to paint a bigger picture for everybody, at least in the States, right? We have big like hardware stores, right? You've got Home Depot and Lowe's, and we're so spoiled, right? We can order anything on Amazon and have it delivered in 2 days, and that's not the case in the rest of the world, and I get reminded of that just about every single day. So when you go out to the shops around here, they're usually single store owners. They kind of just have like piecemeal hardware. You got tools here from this store, and then you've got caster wheels over here at another store. And so in a way it feels incredibly adventurous, in the sense that we don't around here you can't just go to a single store and just buy everything. And of course that's not the case for everything across the board, but specifically what I'm finding when it comes to hardware, it's just kind of going around talking to people. I had some of the plastic with me for the film for the balloons, and so I jumped from shop to shop, and you get a lot of, oh no, we don't have that, using translators, either other people or on your phone, like Google Translate. So it feels super adventurous, and I guess in some ways it's kind of fun, but also of course just wanting to do a really good job for the project and provide this opportunity to the Maldivian people to help them actually fly payloads into space. So it's exciting, it's exhausting, it's all of the above. We'll be leaving here once we've sourced everything, and hopefully baggage fees. We're probably going to have to split things up into 4 different bags, big, probably 50-pound bags or so, and just pay those excess baggage fees. I would say that definitely another huge hurdle right now, as you can all probably imagine, is the U.S.'s war with Iran. So the price of oil going up, it's trickled down, and that's impacted the price of everything else. So everything else has gone up as well. In the U.S. we have some pretty good oil reserves, as far as I'm aware. I'm not an expert on these things, and so you might feel a little bit of the pain of this. longer time goes by, the more pain could be felt. But in like Asia right now, in Southeast Asia, China, for example, I believe, again, has kind of stopped providing some of these reserves of oil to some of the smaller countries. And so, yeah, the prices of stuff are just going up absolutely insane. So when it comes to also island nations like the Maldives, something else that we don't think about a lot in the States is that these countries are incredibly remote, and the most cost-effective way to get things to places is through sea freight, right? So shipping on the ocean. And when you do that, things can take an incredibly long amount. We're talking months, 3 months, 6 months. And scheduling, you start to see why scheduling becomes incredibly important for around the world. Shipping did or delayed, then something that you thought was going to take maybe 3 months or 6 months to get to the other side of the planet ends up taking a year or even more. So it's it's like I said, it's incredibly adventurous when it comes to getting things in the Maldives, sourcing things in the Maldives as well. It's nearly impossible. And I think the interesting part, or at least that I can share with you all here, is well, maybe you find all of this interesting, but countries like the Maldives, you start to empathize with what goods or services they have available, even just something as simple as land availability, right? Resource availability. Because these smaller countries, in comparison to like my own, we have so much open land and resources, and so I think we just get accustomed to it and maybe don't appreciate it as much. And so this journey has not only been adventurous, but also just one of incredible gratitude. The last time, or fostering that gratitude, I guess. So the last time I was out in the Maldives was for a separate project working with the Maldives Space Research Organization. And I never had to stop by like a hardware store or to source any materials, because the project we were working on was more like academic and intellectual as opposed to operational. So being able to work with their team over these last couple months, and trying to figure out how to source things, how to get lifting gas, who the suppliers are, all of those logistical things are close to an absolute nightmare. And you just start to see how great we have it in the U.S. When it comes to availability of those resources. And so doing everything I can on this end to help them build out their capabilities, and seeing how big of an impact this is going to be, hopefully to them, and then as you know from the proposal, just to other like space island nations or small emerging space nations. So still remaining hopeful, but recognizing that there's a huge logistical problem when it comes to these countries being interested and then actually putting work or the foundation under doing things in space. So lots of learning. We're going to be working on this this month and into next month. So we're going to the deadline for the end of this quarter, and so we'll give you guys more of an update next quarter on everything that we can do. But appreciate everybody.
Oh, looks like we missed the very end there of Trent's, but yeah, a technical glitch. But thank you to Trent for providing an update from the field on the ground. Yeah, we can hop into our final update. Thanks everyone for sticking with us today for this slightly longer town hall. I'll bring Pablo up here on stage for the MoonDAO Executive Branch final report update for Q1. Take it away, Pablo.
Awesome. Cool. Write us out here. Hopefully it won't be too long. So this is the final report for the executive branch. So just for context, we had a 6-month kind of funding period for the executive branch. And we're kind of in the middle of one of our core deliverables, which is this like flagship launchpad raise. But real life timing doesn't necessarily match the quarter-to-quarter cadence. So we're giving a report, but a lot of these results are still kind of in the process of being realized. So keep that in mind, I guess, as we're going through. So the kind of core mandate or the core objective of our 6-month period is to scale the amount of revenue for the DAO. And within that core objective, the major initiative is the launchpad, where a portion of the funds raised will go back to MoonDAO to create sustainable revenue. And then beyond that, we're doing a lot of things where if you're a citizen, it gives you certain benefits tied to the launchpad. So we're using it also as an opportunity to increase the amount of citizens and the amount of people that are participating within MoonDAO. Some kind of core figures so far. We're at a little over $160,000 as of this writing. Actually, even in the last couple days, we're up a little bit more than that. We're at 184 citizens, so there's been decent growth of the citizens network, up from under 150 at the beginning of our term. So good growth, and we're expecting to see more as the launchpad, as we raise more funds to send people to space, since one of the seats is a competition for the citizens. We've also grown teams slightly, but less than what we'd hoped. And I guess one of our better metrics is that our new governance stack, which was another kind of core update to the DAO, is up and running and working. Some bugs here and there, but we've had uptime essentially of our governance in this new kind of quarterly iteration that has basically worked as expected. So yeah, these are kind of the 3 objectives laid out here. One is just about sustainable operations, which means scaling the revenue to match our costs, doing all the sort of executive functions that we have to do, and then also growing the overall network within the DAO to kind of create this flywheel effect. So yeah, here's where we're at as of this writing. So the bulk of this is really coming in from the fundraiser, and yeah, we're hoping to see essentially this scale up to at least our milestone of $500,000, or ideally to the $1 or $2 million mark. So yeah, with that, we'll be seeing kind of an inflow into the MoonDAO treasury that will then be distributed, of course, to more projects similar to the ones that you're seeing right now. And yeah, we completed a pretty major migration of our governance stack over the last quarter. Everything is now kind of controlled and operated by MoonDAO. We're not relying on third parties, which has kind of been a major pain point, the sort of interfaces between ourselves and some of these other kind of tools that we rely on. So now we have everything kind of fully managed within an internal voting table that is on chain, and yeah, uses a lot of the same architecture that we've kind of leveraged for different parts of the MoonDAO app. So yeah, this allows us to iterate a lot quicker, address bugs a lot faster, and also not have to worry about any of our tools coming at us with really big sort of costs out of nowhere, which has also been a theme. So this allows us to kind of keep very lean operations. Yeah, we've kind of just built a bunch of stuff ourselves. So one of the core objectives here is to increase the amount of utilization around the jobs and marketplace listings. We didn't do as well as we'd hoped on this. We've been so focused on the launchpad that we haven't really done as much of the team's outreach to add jobs and marketplace listings. However, we did do a lot of work in sort of improving the overall UI and user experience around the team's platform. We collected a bunch of feedback essentially, and and now it's working better. But we still need to follow through with a lot of the teams to have them now go in and upload jobs and marketplace listings. And we reached out to a bunch of the teams for feedback and calls, and we've kind of been talking to them one-on-one. But we really need to increase the amount of total outreach there. Another big update. So the team is leaner now. It just consists of myself, Ryan, and Miguel. So previously we had Jade and Colin, who were also supporting as developers within the executive branch. Now we've essentially reduced the size of the team, and this should translate to less costs overall, since one of the largest costs for MoonDAO is essentially paying for development and development work. So this should help us be leaner, and in some ways almost we've been able to crank out more code and more changes at a quicker pace because there's less kind of coordination overhead. So actually this quarter we've had the most activity in our GitHub in terms of pull requests and commits than we've ever had in the entire lifespan of MoonDAO. And a lot of that is due to some of these AI tools. It just kind of goes to show that sometimes the bottleneck here is coordination, not the amount of people. So so here's kind of where we're at. There is some budget actually left over as a result of us kind of reducing the size of the team, which is great. And this has also allowed us to continue operating throughout the raise. So we're not going to be asking for more budget this month because we have funds left over, and we're going to use that to continue to operate until the end of the raise here to kind of deliver on our major objectives before submitting another proposal. So and also not distract ourselves with sort of like putting through a proposal while we're in the middle of this raise, which is really our most important thing right now. So this is sort of some of the transactions. So all of our stuff is transparent. You can see how we've used the funds. We've actually as a result of reducing the team once again, we've had a good amount of funds left over, and we're actually able to fund the Juicebox campaign for sending Frank to space out of the executive branch budget, and we put in a 25K contribution. So this is coming from the executive branch directly. We've essentially just used some of the funds to kickstart the contributions towards that campaign, and put in a contribution on MoonDAO's end. Which I think is awesome, and I think it was great to be able to kind of start out the campaign with a strong figure right out the gate. You can see the rest of the transactions in the report there. There's some travel to various conferences and reimbursements for different dev tools that we use, stuff like that. So in summary, we completed a really big technical migration. We've moved all of our governance stack in-house, and this was a big project. This was kind of a large undertaking that is now complete. We've reduced the amount of costs to run MoonDAO by reducing the team essentially, and also we're scaling our revenue with the launchpad. So and our kind of next thing here is to really kind of focus on scaling the network. I also want to say just so it's clear, we did not fire anyone on the team. It isn't like we went to them and said, hey, it was kind of a conversation with each of the team members, and they're moving on to do really awesome, great other things. and it's kind of a win-win in some ways, because we've been able to, like I said, execute at an even higher or faster pace than we were before, with a leaner team, with less costs. So yeah, that's all I've got here. That's the end of the presentation. So I'll pass it back over to Ryan.
Cool. Thank you, Pablo. Yeah, that's basically all we have. Thanks, folks, for sticking around for 2 hours for this more lengthy conversation and town hall project updates. But stay tuned. We'll have a vote coming out soon for the Q1 project retroactive rewards. So this is a chance for all of you MoonDAO voters to decide the impact of these projects and how they should be rewarded for, the retroactive reward pool that goes to increase the governance power of project contributors, as well as financial incentive for completed proof of work. So stay tuned for that. But more importantly, yeah, as Pablo mentioned earlier, the Q2 project deadline is essentially end of day today. So do get your project proposals in today. If you have any sort of issues, you can reach out to us or open up a support ticket. I was just looking through, I think we have 10 proposals or so right now, which is awesome to see. And we'll probably see a few more come in before the end of the day, but definitely do reach out to us and, post it. If you have any, last minute issues, submitting it in the system for whatever reason, make sure you flag it with us and we can perhaps manually process things before the actual deadline if need be. But
yeah, I do want to just make a very quick announcement or update around the submission process. So we actually just pushed a change during this town hall to essentially do right now, in order to submit, I don't want to get too much into the details here, but you had to have a multi-sig that was composed of 5 people. And so this is kind of a big hurdle for people. So what we've decided to do is to have a default multi-sig if you don't have your multi-sig set up, and that will at least let you submit and move forward and have a default multi-sig created, where the author is a member of the multi-sig, and 4 other people from MoonDAO, including some people from the executive branch, kind of are they're supporting by default. So that should help you get past any sort of submission hurdles.
Yeah, just make it a little easier for people to get through that first submission step. But yeah, the plan then is the Senate will review these Q2 proposals, provide feedback to the authors so they can make any changes or improvements according to what the Senate deems necessary or should be changed or could be changed. And then next week we will have the presentations to the community, and ultimately the community will vote on the projects that they want to see funded and go forward. Just like last quarter with this new governance cycle, we'll depending on the actual number submitted, but we'll submit the either top 50% of the projects or up to the budget limit for the quarter. So yeah, excited to see what the community picks and what people are bringing forward to present to the community in the Q2 cohort. I haven't had a chance to dive into all the proposals yet, but there's some cool ones coming through the pipeline already. So we got that. And of course, the independent community contributions. If you did anything during Q1 to help advance MoonDAO or MoonDAO's mission, you can submit that for retroactive rewards. We also have a set aside pool, again, with ETH rewards and vMooney voting power. So that deadline is April 15th.
Yeah. Awesome. Kind of a longer town hall today, almost 2 hours, but lots going on, of course. So, we're we're trying our best. We had well, it's great to have such a awesome a bunch of amazing projects that are submitting all of their updates, and now we're gonna have a new batch with some of these new proposals. So it's really exciting stuff. But yeah, and so yeah, the other thing that I really want to emphasize though is there's only 18 days for Frank's raise. So just want to end on that note. We really need help from the entire community. If you know anyone else that you think would resonate with this, either want to compete for the second seat, or might be a potential donor. It really doesn't have to be much. It could be $50, $10, $100. However much people can give, it really does help. So if you know anyone that you think would be a great contributor, we would really appreciate it. So
yeah, let's blast past 100 contributions. We're sitting at, I think, 97 right here during this call. So let's see if we can get past 100, and any small donations are more than welcome, or any help, just getting the word out, talking about the overview effect, talking about this mission, talking about Frank's work for 4 decades. All of that is huge, but we can all rally the global space community around this and help send Frank to space, and help send another one of you watching perhaps to space alongside him.
Yeah. On social media, I have notifications turned on for MoonDAO. We've been, putting out great content, and just throwing it out there. It does help if you like and retweet. Helps us reach more people. So, if you want to support that way, that is actually very helpful. Helps us reach more people. Retweet it to your audience, comment, engage on it. Helps us with the algorithm. So, yeah,
absolutely. Like it on YouTube or X or LinkedIn or wherever you're watching right now. Share this video, etc. And what you see coming out in the next couple weeks. So cool.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will see you next week, same time, same place.
Yep. Thanks everyone.
All right. See ya.
Welcome to MoonDAO, a revolutionary governance model and mission-oriented community that's reshaping collaboration in the space industry. Our mission is to create a self-sustaining, self-governing settlement on the moon to act as a launch point into the cosmos. MoonDAO is governed like a nation, with its own economy, constitution, voting system, treasury, elections, and senate, but internet native, and so without the limitations of geography. In 2022, we sent our first member to space, showcasing our model's capacity for real-world impact. Now, we're implementing key solutions for global collaboration in the space industry. We offer a borderless, permissionless platform that enables everyday people to participate in the future of space development and exploration. Be part of our lunar legacy and join the MoonDAO movement today.